Welcome to NDTR Spotlight, a show where we highlight former and current NDTRs. And NDTR, if you don't know, stands for Nutritionist Diet Technician Registered. They also go by the credential DTR, which stands for Diet Technician Registered. In order to become an NDTR, you have to graduate from an accredited program, take an exam, and participate in continual education. Welcome to NDTR Spotlight. I'm your host, Marie Lorraine. Today's guest I'm super excited about. I found her through an email sent out by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics sub-unit group for DTRs, asking if you wanted to be a part of an email list to help voice your opinions as a DTR. And when I saw that she was doing this, I knew I had to have her on the show. I reached out to her on LinkedIn and she graciously agreed to be here today. So a little bit about her. She has her Bachelor's of Science in General Dietetics. She has an MBA and she's certified as a school nutrition specialist and a fellow of the Academy of Dietetics. She is currently a supervisor of operations for student dining services at Cincinnati Public Schools. And her areas that she feels most confident in nutrition are school nutrition, food management, and community nutrition. And she has been working extremely hard since COVID hit. She did not slow down, but she has sped up her work with her team. She has helped serve nearly 1.8 million meals to people in the greater Cincinnati area. So she is doing amazing things in the field of dietetics as a DTR. I'm really excited to meet her. So Courtney, thank you so much for being here.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, that's all you. I was just so blown away when I was looking you up and reading about what you're doing in this field. So thank you. Yeah. So let's start from the very beginning. What made you decide to become a diet technician?
So I got my bachelor's in dietetics. I was one of those rare breeds that declared my dietetics undergrad in high school. I was just so destined to be a dietitian, I couldn't stand it. So my undergraduate was a 4-year program, and it was really set up to be a stepping stone into the internship process for dietitians to be registered. I didn't get placed for an internship, and I was absolutely heartbroken. I didn't know what to do. I felt like my dreams were crushed. Like, where do I go from here? And really, I mean, as great as my advisors were, there wasn't really much leverage to help break me into any other pathway. It was just like, try again next time. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to spend the next 10 years of my life applying in the hopes that I would eventually get an internship. So I immediately took 2 part-time jobs. In dietetics, I started in a long-term care facility and did those in the morning and drove across town. And in the afternoon, I worked part-time in a cafeteria and I helped with menu planning just to kind of make ends meet. No benefits, just trying to see where my niche was, see if I could get a job. It's just tough. So I did sit for the DTR exam after I started working, and it really opened up opportunity in school nutrition, which was not what I expected, but I found that I absolutely loved it. My first boss, my first mentor was DTR, and she really talked me through what I could do with it, how I could sell myself, the opportunities in school nutrition, and, working in the kitchens was my starting point, and just, growing up from there into menu planning and bigger things like operations now. But I found that I didn't need to be a registered dietitian to work in school nutrition. All of the professional benefits were equal of any registered dietitian job that I could have obtained with an internship. So it really, really just spoke to me. I loved what I was doing, and I couldn't see myself doing anything different. So the DTR was suggested by a boss, and I ran with it. So that's really how I became a DTR.
Wow, I love that. Because it's so easy just to get stuck on that registered dietitian path, but the DTR is also a very beneficial path for a lot of people. So with working 2-part jobs and studying for the exam, what was that process like? Was that really stressful for you, or?
Well, I took the exam twice. I am no stranger to test anxiety and working was a lot, new jobs at that. And I signed up too early. I was really eager to do it, and I flopped. And I put my head down, and I decided I wasn't going to let it happen again. So it was a combination of like finding what worked best for me. I'm never a good test taker, and any of the credentials that I've obtained have never come easy to me, my master's included. So really looking at what I needed to do to put my head down and just drive forward to obtain that. But studying for it, I didn't really have any resources. I didn't know where to go. So that was my first really hard step into doing my own personal research to find some of the study materials. And gosh, I wish I had some of the social media escapes now. Then that would have been really helpful, but I didn't. So, but it was a lot more difficult than any of the other exams I had taken for me personally, because if you think about the scope of practice for DTRs, it's so broad and it covers so much work. So it's hard to think about, are they going to test me on this, or are they going to test me on this? So you really do have to be prepared for anything when you're taking the DTR exam. So if I could give anybody any advice, it's don't sign up too early. Be ready. Because once, failing is the reality. That happens often with RDs, DTRs, all of them. So any credential, you can fail, you can take it again. There's usually that lag where you have to re-sign up for it, but it's disheartening. So if you do fail and you aren't ready, that really knocks you down a couple of steps, because you have to pick yourself back up, take a deep breath, and start over. So just be ready the first time.
Yeah, that's super. It's good to hear, especially like with people thinking about taking the test and not passing it the first time. So you said giving yourself enough time. For you, what was different about the second time you studied for that exam, like with length of time and strategy?
It was definitely the length of time. I didn't fail by much, which was, I couldn't tell. I still don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. To me, it was just like crushing. I had like those few points that I could have just pushed forward and obtained it, but I didn't. So I'm not a math whiz. That was my worst part. So when you're looking at your score and you see where you fall short of and maybe where you're really excelling, focus on those gaps and how to fill those in, and use people around you. So social media aside, talk to your bosses, your colleagues. If you have other peers that you used to go to school with, because I ended up obtaining a lot of RD exam materials from peers that were preparing for the RD exam or in their internship process. So for me, I found that really boosting my study materials by preparing for the RD exam, but really taking the DTR exam, because it is a lesser scope of practice. So I wanted to be over prepared.
That is such great advice. I haven't heard anyone say that, to like, because it is, everything you explained makes sense. To look at the RD exam and then just, oh, I love that. I love that. So you mentioned when you were talking about why you became a DTR, that you had people in your life that showed you what the DTR does and the scope of practice. What did they say that was so convincing of you to stay at the DTR?
Oh gosh, this was years ago. It wasn't any one thing. It was more or less, look what you can do, look to see where you want to be. It's a lot of self-reflection to decide where you want to go. It's like anything. I always tell students, because we get interns here, everybody wants to be the best at what they do, but you have to start somewhere. So getting the degree does not mean you have the job. And having a participation award doesn't grant you like all of the money and happiness in life. You really have to work hard for what you need. And all of my bosses in my life have been really strong have really strong work ethic, really driven, have always told me, put your head down, keep going, think harder. What else could you do? How could you do it better? So it was really just those motivational points of like, well, it's kind of on you. You know, a lawyer can pass the bar, but you still got to work. And you can't be successful without that hard work. So, you know, walking into a job with my head slumped and my shoulders kind of, you know, low, she's like, what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Take the test. Be better. If that's what you want to do, just do it. But there's a lot more to it than that. So you have to, sometimes you have to self-reflect and think where I want to be in 3 years, where do I want to be in 5 years, and what's going to get me there. So those are the questions she made me ask myself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know, I just graduated. What do you mean? I don't even know why I'm here today.
Wow, yeah. So self-reflection. Those are hard questions to answer for yourself. Yeah, those are definitely things that's good though to answer them. So with your career, can you kind of walk through the jobs that you've had and how you got them? Because I know a lot of DTRs struggle with finding jobs.
Yes, that is a really hard one. So like I said, I started right off the bat out of college. I worked in a long-term care facility in like wellness rehabilitation for folks coming out of surgeries, both for exercise and for nutritional plans. And then I paralleled that work in K-12 schools. So there's a local school district here in Cincinnati that actually subcontracted several other districts. So as the food service director, she would make sure that the menus were planned, the food was procured. But I really started just helping cooking in the high school kitchen, because what better way to learn what you're doing behind the scenes than to get out there and do it. So I spent a lot of days catering and cooking and ordering and inventory and receiving deliveries and FIFO and commodities, and, you know, putting in that hard work day one. I was so frustrated because I felt, and I think a lot of people feel this, I didn't go to school and get my DTR to be a line cook. I just didn't. But putting in that work, I never complained because I didn't know where it was going. And she always told me, just do better, then fix it. So I did, I tried, I did my best, but learning that front of the house function helped me better prepare to do the back of the house functions, because after that role, I accepted an assistant director, transitioning into a director's role for Aramark K-12. And that was really challenging for me because it was a Fortune 500 company. So you're not getting the one-on-one mentorship like I was used to. It was a lot of corporate, send me your financials and send me your weekly reports. And there wasn't a whole lot of room for creativity, just because it's well run, but it was corporate run. So when other opportunities came about, Cincinnati Public Schools here had a position for the operations supervisor, and I thought, I think I could do that. It was one of those things you never know until you apply, and sometimes you apply and you think it's over your head or you can't do it, but you never know who you're up against, what the pool looks like, or what they're looking for. You know, they posted the position, so obviously they were looking for an external candidate, at least to explore the options. And I really still don't know what the pool was like, but I've been here for almost 6 years and I love it. So started in the kitchen cooking, and then working into menu planning, special diets, ordering, a little bit more financial accountability. In my second role is assistant and then lead director. And then in this role with operations, it's a lot of staff training, compliance auditing, professional development, hiring, discipline, things like that. So the operational things have shifted a lot, and have a more business-centric focus than my initial dietetics role. But marrying those two has really been successful, because working in a food operation like this, and it could be a company, it could be a Fortune 500, it could be a school district, if you're able to learn the business side of it and understand the food service aspects that are happening on a daily basis, it really helped me bring it all together. And I love what I do. And that's why I went for my MBA, because I realized I love business. I love HR. I love training, and financial stuff, still a little wobbly on it, but it's daunting. and challenging, and sometimes that's appealing to be challenged. So I'm definitely challenged most days.
That's so good. I love a lot of, I feel like there's this mentality that once you graduate and you have your bachelor's degree, you should just start at the top. But the fact that you started in food service with the line and then you worked your way up is encouraging. And it's a good reminder that even if you have that degree, you still need to remain humble and know that you need to learn a lot of stuff. So I appreciate you talking about that. So can you kind of explained a little bit about what you did as a supervisor of operations. Can you elaborate a little bit more on like what your day-to-day looks like as in that role and how the DTR really helps with that?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the pre-COVID because that's what I still like to think is the normal aspect of the job. Cincinnati Public Schools, I think the student enrollment is around 37,000 students across 90 square miles of the city. So it's a rather large district for the area. It's the largest I've ever worked for or had any part in managing. We do pre-COVID, I think we were doing around 60,000 meals, both breakfast and lunch every day. So every day we have 65 schools where food service staff have been assigned to work. Students come in, they receive their breakfast. It's been planned by, we have a registered dietitian on staff here, so she plans the menus. We have food procurement person here. We have people that help assess with the needs, the participation, how many meals are taken, so we know how much labor we need at those schools. So a really hard thing, there's always a lot of turnover in food service. I think that's kind of the reality of what we work with. And that's one of the biggest challenges that I've been dealing with in this role is making sure that we find ways to both obtain staff and retain staff. So professional development is a really big focus here. So we can empower people to cross-train, to develop themselves, to move up the ranks themselves. We have supervisors here that work on our team that were lunchroom managers themselves. So everybody has different backgrounds. It's really interesting to network with your colleagues because everybody comes from being a chef or being a lunchroom manager, or being a dietitian, or being a food inspector, or working in hospitality. So it's really interesting to see everybody come together because it is such a big operation. But getting back to the day-to-day, we do breakfast and lunch, after school programming, working with USDA compliance for commodities, nutritional standards, state auditing, local health department compliance. It's a lot of compliance. That's really what we do, is just make sure everything we do is safe, regulated, and by the rules. So there's a lot more that goes into school food than what people think. So it's really been interesting to see it evolve because laws change, rules change. They usually get more strict. So you have to ebb and flow with the changes.
Yeah, I honestly can't imagine all the like regulations you have to go through. I remember like looking over a little bit in undergrad and it's a lot. So
Yeah, but really it's such a great um, it's such a great role to find in dietetics, especially at the DTR, because again, it's not a requirement to be an RD, but it's such a good basis of knowledge to have walking into. So, the schedules, you follow the school year schedule. You don't have to work nights and weekends and holidays by requirement. Sometimes you do just to catch up, but it's been so agreeable for a family life. Really, it's been the best find for me. So I've been really happy with it.
that's nice. I like that work-life balance and a job is
Definitely.
catering to that. So I know you just talked about pre-COVID, but you talked about feeding 1.8 million meals. So I want to know, how is that transition with COVID? And I know schools are going virtual now, so things are changing. How are you handling that in your position?
They're changing a lot every week, every month. It's something different. We may not know how the month is going to end versus how it started. We closed in, I want to say second week of March, and we immediately flipped our service from that breakfast, lunch, and in-person student service to a curbside service for students that was operated under the summer feeding program, which means it's open to the community. So we were able to extend our reach past the student themselves and reach out to any child ages 18 and under and feed them a meal. So every Wednesday is what we've been doing, and USDA has set forth waivers that have allowed schools to operate a little bit differently just to meet the need of the community. So that's what we've been following, is some of these waivers that have allowed us to drop serve meals curbside to children for a week at a time. So they'll come up and they'll get several bags of food that are both breakfast, lunch, frozen, refrigerated, dry storage food that will last them the week until we serve again the next Wednesday.
Wow.
So, we haven't stopped. We did this all summer. We did it through spring break. We did not do it for 2 weeks through the holidays, but we did do, gosh, I think it was like an 18-day meal drop before the holidays, just to make sure that families were covered for meals, because food insecurity, especially inner city like Cincinnati, is a real problem. And some of the neighborhoods that we operate in, that our schools are located, have some form of food desert. So it's not just about, boosting our participation or making our bottom line come up a little bit so we can still stay financially sound, which is important in any business. But the heart of it all is making sure these kids get fed, because it's very scary to see families losing their jobs and be laid off, and the kids aren't in school, so there's no true form of security, whether it's financial or food security. So if anything we can do to help sustain that a little longer until they can come back, we've been trying to brainstorm all of these crazy options. And we've even found serving at these schools has not been enough. We've had to execute food trucks. So we have little like refrigerated box trucks that go to neighborhoods for families that don't have transportation to get to the schools.
Wow, that's incredible. I really thank you so much for doing that. A lot of times with COVID, you think about the nurses in the hospitals, but what you're doing is just as important, keeping people fed in this time. So thank you for doing that and all the work that you're doing. I know it can't be easy, all that organization. So it sounds like you're doing great things for the kids in your community. And also, you have a role in the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Can you talk to how you got involved with the Academy and what you're doing now with them?
Yeah, so I was initially really involved in the School Nutrition Association, SNA, which I still am. I love it. But I really wanted to see how else I could progress and network and really build on this dietetics platform. So I entered in to run for the NDTR at large delegate role with the Academy. It went through elections last February, and I won. It sounded really exciting. I was like, let's do this, let's see where it leads. And then it came, and I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? There's been a lot of training through the House of Delegates unto me. I have a really great predecessor who's helped me through some of the challenges that I face. But what I wanted to do with this role was really speak for those that were that have fallen silent, that are disheartened, that don't feel well represented. Um, I think we all know how it feels at some point in our career to feel like you're not doing the best you could, or you don't have the support that you feel like you need. So I really wanted to find ways to best represent DTRs, how we can seek our voice to the Academy to be a little bit better represented in terms of, CEUs, job postings, um, even through CDR, through credentialing. Um, but I didn't have a specified group. So that's been my biggest challenge. Most delegates are delegates of a state or a practice, and being a delegate of all DTRs in the Academy is kind of ambiguous. I didn't know where to start. So the email that you received, I was just trying to scratch at anybody's door, anybody's email that I could obtain that I knew was a credentialed DTR through the Academy, so that we can find this collective voice of what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are our strengths and weaknesses, and what can we do to come together and have this one platform of DTRs so that we can present to the Academy. So I feel like we're starting to grow that network of represented DTRs. Um, I'm starting to find commonalities in the challenges and the frustrations that people are having in terms of being represented through Academy marketing and marketing for jobs, marketing yourself as a professional, and what we can do to get the word out, what DTRs do, what we can do, and what benefit we can offer to any employer as a DTR. So I'm just now completing my initial training through the House of Delegates, and that's why it's starting to come together. And it seems like it's been a slow start, but I really had no idea what I was walking into. So it's been an interesting summer. I'm hopeful it's going to be a very productive new year.
So how long does your role last in the academy for this position?
It is a 3-year role. So again, it seemed a little slow, and I was a little nervous. I woke up every morning thinking I wasn't doing something. Is there something I should be doing today? What do I do next? So it's kind of having this big picture project and finding your best place to start.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we found a starting point. We're just starting to echo and grow. So that we can have a good platform. But with the Academy elections coming up, there's a paralleled DTR role that's up for elections. So I think once elections are complete, I hope to be working with that candidate to grow even bigger, to see what else we can do as a team.
Wow, I love that you're doing that. So for people who DTRs who heard this and they want to and they're in the academy, how do they get on that email list, or how do they reach out to you? How does that work for them?
So my contact information is on the Academy as the DTR at-large delegate. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm trying to grow my presence on LinkedIn so that I can network better with other DTRs. I think it's such a valuable professional platform to use.
Mm-hmm.
I am also a member of a social media group called Dietetic Central. It's run by Corinne Cantor. She's a great DTR that's kind of started the early stages of this work to bring DTRs together. How can we do this, or answer questions, or support one another? So that Dietetic Central platform on both Facebook and LinkedIn is a good way to start too, because that's really where the voices started before I even ran for this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was such a common theme to feel the way DTRs feel right now. So we're trying to lift spirits and raise awareness and grow each other. Social media platforms right now during COVID, unfortunately, it's kind of our only route of meeting and networking. So it's not like we have our fancy or our local dietetic meetings to come to, or even work meetings that you can get together with other people. So it's been a little challenging, but those are really good platforms for people to reach out to me.
Yeah. Okay. So we will link some of those below. I know some of them. So thank you for that. And I just want to loop back real quick back to your position. And since you're in food service, I had to ask, what do you think the future of school nutrition is going to look like with, with post-COVID? Do you think it's
Oh
going
my gosh, what a loaded question. I don't even know what it's going to look like next month. Post-COVID, I think the light and the darkness for COVID and school nutrition has been a raised awareness of the need, the importance, the benefits, what it is school nutrition can offer to not just a child in need, but the nourishment and the importance of a good, healthy meal and what it can do to help a child learn, stay focused, progress, make better, healthier choices as an adult, expand their palate, just learn new things. So it's not just about serving food, it's about nutrition education and really expanding on that so that these children grow into healthy habits, and that they know what to expect and what outcomes could come from making good choices. So I think with the news stories that have come about across the nation for these school districts that are pulling these same efforts that we are here in Cincinnati have been so wonderful for the greater good. Nobody competes. It's a really odd dynamic to be in. We don't compete with other school districts. I'm not trying to pull another student. We R&D, we rip off and duplicate ideas from nearby districts and recipes and marketing platforms just so we can grow together. So there's a big source of communal ideas and sharing. And gosh, I really just hope post-COVID, families that didn't utilize school services for food before now do.
Mm-hmm.
They see the value in it and they understand the resources that are available to them, because there's been a lot of community partnerships with food banks and things like that too. So nobody should ever really feel like there's not an outlet for food insecurity, because there is so much available in terms of nourishing your children when you feel like you just can't.
That's awesome. Thank you for shining some light on that. So before we close out the interview, is there anything you want to share, anything you want to encourage DTRs about, or?
Oh gosh. Every day is different. Every day is a struggle. Your months are going to turn into years. Just make sure that you know your goals, your personal, professional goals. Don't let anyone sell you short. Sell yourself. Network yourself. You are what you want to make of yourself. So please, 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 if you feel like you're not where you want to be, think about how to get to that place, because there is a payoff when you find happiness in what you do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Courtney, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure, if you're not a member of the Academy, to join it and let your voice be heard as a DTR. And hit that subscribe button and like button. Thanks so much for watching.